So this is a beepurple video all about how to write a good quality application to our enterprise competition. So the enterprise competition, it's something that we run every year. And last year, so 2015 to 2016, there was a top prize for each category of £2,250. So it's a good competition. The level of entries is very high, hence it's very competitive. So these tips will help you put together a high quality application. So on your screen, what you can see right now is just some general tips. So we're actually going to work through an example. So one of the winning entries from last year. But before we do, I'm just going to run through these tips. So you'll see on the application form that each question has a word count. So it will say in brackets, maximum word count 250. So even though it says maximum word count 250, don't be fooled into thinking that you can write 100 and it's okay. When we're looking at our applications and when we're judging them, if we see that you've had the potential to use 250, but you've only used 100, it can come across as you're not really trying as hard as you potentially could. I suppose that's the way it's interpreted by people who are judging it. So what I would say is, if you are given the opportunity to use 250 words, then make sure you use all of them, because what that demonstrates to the people who are judging it is that you really care and you've put a lot of effort into this application and you've given as much detail as you possibly can. And then second general tip, give full, detailed and interesting answers. So what do I mean by that? I mean, because you're aware of your idea and you are fully versed in understanding every aspect of it, you might forget that other people that you're explaining it to aren't. So try to put yourself in their shoes, and whenever you're explaining anything about your idea, just make sure you give as much detail as possible. And just remember, this person has probably never thought of or heard of your idea before. And when I say interesting answers, so the reason I say that is because, so this year, for example, 2015 to 16, we received nearly 100 applications. And when you're reading through lots and lots of applications, if they all seem very similar, it can get a bit repetitive. So one thing you can do to make your application stand out is by putting interesting facts, or possibly even using a bit of humour or some sort of statistic that might make something stand out and make the reader stop and think, wow, okay, that's impressive. So something like that. Third point, make sure you check spelling and grammar. Again, so this is for the benefit of the person who's checking it. And it's not just a person, someone who's checking it, it's someone who's reading it. So again, bearing in mind that someone is going to have, let's say, 100 applications to read through, you need to be able to get your point across to them as quickly as possible. And one way you can do that is by making sure that your spelling and grammar is correct. Now, of course, if you're dyslexic or if you have particular problems with spelling and grammar, that's fine. But what you could do is ask someone you know who's a friend or family who is good at that sort of thing, and just get them to proofread it for you and just make those corrections before you submit it to us. Finally, actually penultimate point, so it's answer every question in full. So we'll move on to an example in a second, but if a question has two parts to it, so if, for example, the question says, describe your product or service, full stop, and then the second part is explain why it's unique, make sure you answer both parts of the questions. So as it's asking, describe exactly what it is in detail, then separately explain why it's unique. And finally, so this is something that can really make your application stand out and be one of the strongest ones, and that is if you're making a claim. So for example, talking about the number of mobile phone users in the UK because you're making an app, find some statistics from a reliable source like something like Mintel or Keynote. And so you can provide a statistic, something like at present in the UK there are 25 million smartphone users. And really important thing to do, just like you would if you were doing an essay or an assignment, is reference it. So in brackets afterwards, put Mintel, 2015, something like that. So now what we're going to actually do is move on to an example of a good application and just run through that question by question, and I'll explain what sort of answers we're looking for from each part. So this is actually one of the applications from last year that ended up winning. So this is a particularly strong one. So just run through this. So you can see the first question is, if you're entering the most innovative product category, please describe your innovative idea for a new product. So I would say things to point out here are the word innovative. Also new. So we want you to explain to us, what's your idea? Why is it innovative? And why is it new? So there's got to be an element of uniqueness there. So this is a great opening sentence here. So what the entrant here has written is, Tropazar is a fashion accessories brand that takes discarded or excess materials from other industries and transforms them into luxury wearable artworks. So you can straight away see from that sentence, you can see it's unique because they're taking discarded, upcycling materials and they're making them into luxury wearable artworks. So in that first sentence, you know exactly what they're doing and you know why it's unique. So that's a great start. Again, here you can see, so 250 words. So if we scroll down, you'll see that there's 5 or 6 paragraphs there, short paragraphs. So that's more or less what 250 words looks like. So again, just the first impression, if you're looking at this application, you're marking it, you think, okay, this person's put a lot of effort in. That ticks that box. Okay, so then the second part is, what are the key benefits? Which of these benefits make your product, service, or project unique? So really important thing to understand here is, in order for a project or a product or a service to be successful, it has to have a big impact. So any application you do, they're always going to ask you about what's the impact. And I suppose that's what you're being asked here. So yes, it's one thing coming up with an idea which you think is really new and fascinating, but it's got to have an impact on a large group of people. So, whether that be a group of people or the environment. So that's what we're looking for here. So yes, you've now told us about the product, but now tell us about what impact it's having. So if you use the example here about the upcycled jewellery, you can say that there's a benefit to the customer because they get to wear jewellery that gives them a sense of well-being for choosing something which is environmentally friendly, but also the environment is benefiting because fewer things ending up in landfill. So that's the sort of detail we're looking for. And again, you'll notice here, 250 words. So this answer, that looks like it's using the full 250 words. Third question is, so who are your intended customers or end users? How big is your potential market? How do you know there's a need? Again, virtually every application you go to and you try to apply to is going to ask you this sort of question. So now it's all about, okay, so you've got a great idea and we can see there's some benefits, but the group of people out there who are going to be buying your product or service, are there enough of them to make this a worthwhile project? So that's what we're really getting to here. Again, 250 words, so use the full 250 and put stuff in here like our target consumer is 20 to 40-year-old female. So they've put an age range, they've put the gender of the person they're aiming for, and their income and where they live and what their interests are, that sort of thing. Again, if you're going to have a product or a service which is going to succeed, you need to look into those sorts of details. Again, 250 words, they've used the full amount. Great example here, they've referenced Mintel, which is a market data company, and they've put in the size of the market. So reading this application, you can't help but be really impressed by it. Question 4, so who have you collaborated with, or who do you intend to collaborate with in order to develop your idea further? Really, what this question's getting at is bearing in mind that it's going to take collaboration with someone else to make your business work. Who have you collaborated with already? And the reason we put this in is because it can be very tempting at the beginning to think that you want to do everything yourself and no one can do it as good as you. And that's fine. A lot of people start off like that. But really, if you're going to make a success, you need to be having collaborations with other people. Whether that be other people that you bring in to do certain jobs that you're not so strong at, so maybe the marketing or the sales, but also collaborations with potential clients, whether you're selling direct to consumers or making partnerships with other businesses who'll sell your product or service on your behalf. So that's what we're looking for here. We're looking for names. So there's Kingsway Tires. So we've got an idea of who these people are. We know they exist. And we want to know some information about them. So what do they do? How are they linked into your business? So the more detail you can give here, giving real examples and names of people you're collaborating with, the more it seems like this is the sort of business which is going to be around for long enough to make it worthwhile. Okay, next question is, what do you think you need to do next in order to develop your idea further and turn it into reality? So what we're getting at with this question is, do you have the ability to plan effectively? So again, there's one thing having a great product which has impact and there's a large enough user group who would make it worthwhile. But have you got the ability to set all these tasks in order and make sure that they're done by the right person? Really, that's what we're getting at here. If it is just you, that's fine, but it's understanding that you as an individual have limitations as to how much you can achieve. So we're looking for a kind of a reality check here as well. So here we'll want to see what the steps are, when they're going to happen, and who's doing them. So here you can see a date. That's what we like. We like to see dates. So by this date, this will happen. And who's doing it as well. Okay. Again, 250 words maximum, and they've used the full 250 words. Next part is list the associated startup costs for your idea. So what we're kind of testing here is, do you have a realistic grasp of how much this is going to cost to set up? Best thing to do is find some quotes online, do your research, and then put down what tends to be the average price for doing these things. And list it. Again, bear in mind, we're going to be reading lots of these, possibly up to 100 applications. So the more clearly you list it in this sort of form, the easier it is for us to read. So see here, you've got website, 1,500, promotional film, 1,000. That's great. They're in little headings as well. So general promotional materials. Also, you've got photo shoot for next season, breaking that down even further. And then you've got another block here. Okay, so the next thing is, if you were to win the competition, what would you spend the money on? Now, the best quality answers will break it down. So in 2015 to 2016, the way we arranged the prize money was we would have the top prize for each category won 250, second place won 750, and then if you didn't win either the first or second place, but were one of the 10 shortlisted entries, you'd win £250. So we want to see that you can prioritize your spending. So here you can see the entrant has said, if we won the 250, we would spend it on this. Okay, and then if we won 750, we would spend it on this, and so forth. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that level of detail. That's what makes this answer stand out as an excellent answer. Okay, question 7 is, how do you intend to make money from your idea? So this might sound like a strange one, because I imagine in your head you're probably just thinking, well, we're just going to sell it. But the reality is, whether it's a product or a service or a project, there are so many different ways that you can make money. Like I said, are you going to sell directly to your customers? Or are you going to make partnerships with other businesses and give them a cut and get them to do your sales and possibly distribution as well? So that's something to consider, and that's what we want an answer to here. So we want, even though this is a shorter question, we want a detailed answer. So here you can see this person has said, we intend to find shops and online stores to stock our work through applications using our product catalogue and by attending trade shows. So they've made clear that they don't intend to sell directly to their customer. They're going to use third parties to do the sales on their behalf, probably because they've got a bigger reach. But whatever you decide, we want to know why you're doing that as well. Okay, so now the next part is, how much income do you expect to generate from your idea in the first year of trading? And then, of course, we've added this part, which is, in the case of community projects, how much grant funding do you anticipate raising and from which funders? So if you're having a project and you're relying on grants, then naturally that's a bit different. That being said, it is increasingly common these days, even if you're running a charity, to have to do some sort of commercial activity to raise money. So here we want to see figures. We want to see in your first year, how much turnover do you think you make and how much profit, just like Dragon's Den. So here that's exactly what they've listed. They said in the first year they would aim to make 13,107, of which this much is profit. So that's what we want to see. And the reason we ask this is because we want to see, is this a viable business? So yes, it's a nice idea and there's a market and you are organised enough to sell it, but is there enough profit on each product? I mean, if you're only making 10 pence profit on each product and you're selling, a few thousand a year, then is that enough to make it a sustainable business? So really that's what we're looking at. How much money is this business like to make in the first year? And of course, some businesses take a while to build up and you might not make much profit in the first year, but we'd want to see signs that there's enough revenue to make it worth it. That's what we're looking for here. Now you can see, again, this is an excellent answer because they've broken their products down into tiers. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and this kind of reflects, the quality of the product, who it's being sold by, and they've made projected revenue and profits here. So again, reading through this example, even if they're not posting massive revenues or profits, it's impressive to see this level of detail. And again, they've quoted Mintel here, a market data source. And then the final part of the application is strengthen your application by providing additional visual material. Now, in this actual part here, so what you would do is list all the additions that you've sent, and then you send them separately by email. So that's what they've done here. Whether it's a product or a service or a project, some photos always, they add a bit of depth to the application. And for us, when we're reading them, it's nice just to see a bit of context and see the people behind it. You could also attach market data reports if you found that, and so forth. So that is a summary of all the top tips for producing a good application. Something I would really like to emphasize is the people that tend to win the competition are those that seek support. So it's not coincidence. Those that draft their application, get it in early to us, but say to us, look, this is my first draft. Could you look at it, please? Could you talk me through how I can do a better quality application, how I can refine my business model? Then we do that. And so those that tend to seek support are those that tend to do better in most circumstances. And I should just finally add, there is one question at the bottom, which is, if you want your idea to be successful, you have to summarize it in 10 words or fewer. That's the final question. It's not massively important, but if you can, good to add it in there. Say what it is, say what it does in 10 words. I suppose it's like a mini elevator pitch. So that's the end of the video. As always, this is just an introduction and you'll get the most out of your experience here by coming to see us. So the first thing you would do is send us an email, beepurple@brighton.ac.uk. That's beepurple, so B-E-E, purple, @brighton.ac.uk, or give us a call on 01273 64 1220.